Hi, everyone, and welcome to Review Magic. So, what I'm going to do is today we have to review how China got rich. This is a documentary that I found on Amazon Prime, and as I was surfing different videos to watch, this was something that caught my attention. And I've been very interested in understanding the dynamics that shaped China's resurgence to a global power. And being from India, because you're so close to China, that kind of contrast is bound to happen. You have to know what happened in the history of this communist party that has now shaped the modern society of China. So I started watching how China got rich. And this is a documentary that is directed by Michael Wood. And it walks you through, 40, 50 years back in time when China was, poor. It had old traditional ways of thinking, and people were starving. They were not the economic superpower that they are today. And a lot of transformation happened over 40 years. This documentary shows that China has uplifted more people out of poverty than any country in this planet. So that's a very significant drive. And in order to do that, you require visionaries within the political government. So China has one party system, and the initial leader was Mao, and there was another leader by the name of Deng Xiopeng. If you have seen the footages of China, in films, documentaries, you will recognize there is a photo of a gentleman on one of the square areas. And this guy is Deng Xiaoping, one of the revolutionary leaders to transform and take all the credit for making China what it is today. So it was a very fascinating documentary. I felt the director walked through all the different steps that happened in the last 40 years to get China out of poverty, misery, starvation into what it is today. So, 40, 50 years ago when World War II happened, millions of Chinese, they lost their lives and things only went down the drain. But this documentary, it brings to light, how China, under the leadership of Deng Xiaoping, who had some differences with the leader Mao, and because of that, he was sent to the countryside, and he was in exile for 3 to 4 years. And when you're in that situation, you start to think, you get new ideas. How do you want to reshape the country, the economy? And that's what exactly happened with Deng Xiaoping. When he came back into the political system, the political system was traditionally conservative, and Deng had a vision that he wants to balance the existing Chinese values with modern capitalism. So I think that's a very interesting facet that this documentary brings to life. So as Deng Xiaoping eventually becomes the supreme leader, the premier of China, he starts to visit different countries. He invites people into conferences within, all the different delegates of China coming into the hotel, and he's laying out this plan. Yes, he gets some opposition, but he also gets a lot of support because he's laid out this framework blueprint for evolving China. And he visits a lot of different countries. He goes to Japan, goes to Singapore. He is really impressed by the lifestyle of ordinary middle class income people in Japan who own refrigerators. They have got cars. They've got the basic necessities to to have in one's home. Similar thing in Singapore. But that is not something that was available in China. So, all this was recorded when Deng was visiting, and he brings that back to show to the people of China, like, what really are they missing? And especially people who are poor, who lived in villages, because China traditionally was an agricultural economy. And when you see those things, you feel that your own people don't have what other countries like Japan, Singapore, or Thailand, they have it. So I think the impetus was more like the ordinary people, they wanted change. And Deng came from there. He knew that the people were tired by this lifestyle, and Chinese had the potential. So they were all working in one of the scenes. Michael Wood, he goes to a remote village, and where everyone was farming, doing collective things together. They came and set a pact that all the families are going to work for themselves now. So it was more individual rather than going collective and sending the revenue or taxes back to the government. So people started taking hard decisions that was required at a very grassroots level. And as Michael Wood walks through it, so these are some of the changes that have happened, and Deng has been observing it. He brings delegates into a hotel in one of the major metropolitan cities, and this is something mischief that sometimes in China the ordinary foreigner cannot book hotels in these places. These are secretive places just for the government people. So they showed which hotel this was in the show, and I thought it was fascinating. So along with people making changes at the grassroots level, a lot of people started embracing science and technology and as a way to liberate China. I think that this was something that Deng put emphasis on, the education aspect, as to how do we get Chinese people more sustainable in technology and science kind of vocations, building factories and getting people out of poverty. In one of the scenes that back in those days, Hong Kong was much more influential place, and it shows a port in China where a lot of people actually swam from China to Hong Kong. Around 800,000 people, close to 1 million people, and a lot of people drowned. But the fact that you're getting 100 times the daily worker wage in Hong Kong pushed people to go there. And there was no bridge connecting Hong Kong and part of China that they were showing in the documentary. So I thought that was interesting because I never knew so many people had died going from China to Hong Kong, and these were young people. So that also was a reason why Deng, he was interested in trying to revive the business partnerships within that economic zone of China. Rather than having Hong Kong being the epicenter of development, why not have different regions, whether it's Shenzhen, Guangdong, Wenzhou? These were the areas that were going to develop. So a lot of foreign investment came, new businesses were opening, and this would bring more opportunities for the common Chinese to have a better job, have a better house, send their kids to school. And eventually it has overtaken any other country in the world in terms of building factories and producing products that are available in pretty much every part of the world. So for that also, Deng, he visited US. US had a good relationship with Taiwan, but China, for political reasons, it's shown he visits United States, where Jimmy Carter was the president. And Deng visits a lot of different cities: Seattle, Atlanta, Texas. So you get a feel of where you are, and you want that thing to come to your country. There was a push where one of the things that was blocking the progress of China was that a lot of middle level managers, all the decision making was happening from top to bottom, and they decentralized it. They let collective decision makers on the managerial side take decisions quickly and be more agile. One of the push was also to send Chinese people to study in good universities in America, in Harvard universities. And I like the conversation where Deng is talking to one of the ambassadors, and he asked him how many people. He asked how many Chinese people can be sent to universities, and then someone says that it depends on how many you want to send, and then send as many as you want. So a lot of Chinese people coming to good esteemed universities like Harvard and getting those managerial skills, and then coming back. But in one of the interviews, I also saw one of the ambassadors talks about that there's always this risk that you're trying to open up the economy, you're trying to modernize it. What if these kids who go to China, who are responsible to come back, don't actually come back? And Deng was very optimistic. I think he said even if one comes back, it's good for the country. So I think that Deng to me was the epitome of optimism. Looking at a glass as half full rather than half empty. And I think you need that sort of visionary people who gradually want to keep pushing and unite the country. So US influence was there. There's new business opening happening, factories building up. And from a communist region, it really has transformed into a capitalistic economy. Everything today, you see things that you use are developed and manufactured in China. So another thing that I saw in the documentary that was interesting is, in more education for women. When they show that the colleges, universities were closed and everyone goes back to villages, and then a lot of these delegates, they give feedback to Deng that we need to reopen colleges, universities, and then there is this exam where very few people, 5% of this of people who are appearing for exams get selected, and then you have a worker's child, you've got a doctor's child, you've got a mix of all the kind of people that bring new ideas onto the table, and they are sitting in that class. Also, the fact that there's more emphasis now that's growing for more education for women to take more participation in politics and government, in private enterprises. So more and more of that happening. Back in those days, all that push was successfully driven by Deng and his team. So modernization happens, technology, and then the new revolution is the AI part. If you look at the modern skyscrapers of China, whether it's in Shanghai, in Shanghai, Beijing, it really gives you that China has wonderfully crafted it outserve, that communist economy. It has beautiful architecture buildings, and in these buildings, there is something really revolutionary happening now. So, we've got the factories, you've got political things happening. Now it's, these buildings, these skyscrapers, and now demand for technology, AI, artificial intelligence. So a lot of companies like Alibaba, whether it's Tencent, it showed all these, the next chapter of Chinese people. And one of the interesting things that I felt was good was that in today's generation, the millennials or even the new folks that are coming in, is that how quickly they're embracing technology. Technology just doesn't leave you. You have your iPhone, you are scanning devices, you're ordering things. It's become a consumerism economy driven all by AI, machine learning technology. So fantastically thought and executed on that level. So to sum up, I would say that, China definitely, this documentary definitely opened my eyes and showed me that, how China started from a country whose GDP was less than Tanzania, Congo at one point of time, 50 years ago, to being a country, right behind US with the highest GDP. So it takes a mammoth effort with the planning like that, with a vision to be a global leader and to balance your Chinese traditional values with a capitalistic future and outlook. So I think this is something that really stood out for me. I'll be more interested to watch more documentaries around China, given the proximity of India and China. And I am from India, but certainly this is a documentary that's worth watching, and it's engaging. There is a lot of good flowing information, and it's going to open up your mind. It's going to give you a look into what the state was, what the state is today, and where the Chinese people or the country as a whole wants to go. And we'll see how those things happen under the leadership of Jinping. That he's already done a lot of things for the country. So my recommendation is go watch it. It is available on Amazon Prime, and let me know what you think of the show, and put down your comments. If you like this video, you can also subscribe to our channel. Thank you.